Well, here's a video I never thought I would be making in my life. A discussion on Master Roshi, the Turtle Hermit. And I want to make one thing perfectly clear. We're not doing this as sort of like a Hall of Fame thing. Like, let's look back fondly on this once great character. Let's look back in the halcyon days of the Dragon Ball era when Roshi was the first supreme badass. No. This is relevant as fuck, because if you haven't heard, Roshi, the Turtle Hermit, is going to be participating in the Tournament of Power. He's going to be part of Team Universe 7, one of the 10 contenders, and it's going to be badass. Did you not lose your shit when you saw Roshi in the opening titles? Because I know I did. I think every Dragon Ball fan worth their salt, when they saw this, had to at least yell out, and "Oh shit, Roshi's back!" See that awesome scene where he's walking alongside all the other fighters, Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Majin Buu, the androids, and he's just hands behind his back, sauntering. He's shorter than everybody else, but he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna curb stomp a whippersnapper or two. We get this scene where he takes off his glasses. Oh man, it's gonna be crazy. So this video is gonna be looking back at the character, but not to like, oh well, he used to be cool and now he's whatever. He's sort of like become a comic relief character throughout most of Dragon Ball Z, and even in Dragon Ball Super. Yes, he did get the one badass moment in the Resurrection of F saga when, you know, he fought against Frieza's soldiers, but before that and afterwards, he's still really been more of that comic relief, you know, perverted old man kind of type of character. Although we did get that scene in the Future Trunks arc, you know, the previous arc, where he actually taught Goku the Mafuba. I mean, it didn't really go anywhere, but it was still really cool to see Roshi in that role of mentor once again after so long. So of course, Roshi is well known for the Kamehameha, the technique that he invented, the original user of the Kamehameha. But there's some other techniques that he hasn't used in forever, since he hasn't fought in a tournament setting in forever. In fact, he actually never has fought in a tournament as Master Roshi, because it's always been Jackie Chun, of course. Dragon Ball was always a little bit more satirical, bordering on the level of satire back then. So there was a lot more pop culture references, there was a lot more gag humor than there is now in the story. So maybe that might account for some of it, but Roshi was the first badass. He was the one that originally taught Goku the power of the Kamehameha, which is key in a sense, you know, and he was the one that originally trained Goku and Krillin. And I would recommend, if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't seen it since you were a kid, go back and watch the fight between Roshi and Goku in the first World Martial Arts Tournament. You don't have the crazy, you know, flight mechanics and the beam struggles and shit. It's just straight up martial arts for the most part. There are still a Kamehameha and, you know, some weird techniques thrown in there. Goku turns into a giant ape, you know, but it's a really cool fight if you haven't seen it in a long time. I just watched it recently and I was really blown away by it, so I would recommend it. So going on beyond just the Kamehameha, other techniques that he could implement. First off, Roshi keeps his techniques sort of limited by his body. So in his normal form, he's just this frail, old, perverted man, basically. But he has the ability to actually change his muscle mass when he so chooses, when he gets serious. Of course, we saw that he was still capable of it in Resurrection of F, so that was pretty good. They threw that in there as well. Not just beyond the fact that we haven't seen him fight before this scene in fucking forever, but also that we saw, okay, he's still badass. He still has the capability of, you know, activating his max power form, launching a fucking Kamehameha. You know, he's not just this doddering old man that's succumbed to age. He's still got some power in him. So there's some other forms he uses as well. You know, this form that he used, that's sort of like, you know, his last resort, because it uses up a lot of, you know, power and stuff. So he has another form that he uses when he was Jackie Chun in the tournament, where he can, like, bulk up to, like, 50% power, or he's still a pretty muscular dude. He doesn't look frail and old anymore, to kind of disguise that he wasn't actually Roshi, but it's not as powerful as, of course, his big muscular form. He was the first character to really show an incredible feat of power in the Dragon Ball series by blowing up the fucking moon. Keep in mind, this is before we get to all the crazy key attacks and power levels. You know, Roshi straight up capped the fucking moon. All right, in like the World Martial Arts Tournament, in the earlier arc of the story. That was insane. If I was alive in the 80s and I was Japanese and I was reading that, I probably would have jizzed my pants. All right, that's insane. There's some other techniques though that he's implemented when he was Jackie Chun against Goku and against Krillin and against Man-Wolf when he was participating. These probably will not be implemented, but I think the whole point of this is to kind of, show you guys the techniques, to kind of refresh your memories if it's been so long since you've seen Dragon Ball. So on top of Kamehameha, of course, he also had a technique called Thunder Shock Surprise, which he was able to shoot out an electrical current of ki, it would most likely be, of course, at Goku, which he used to actually trap him. I believe this was the technique that actually caused Goku to turn into Ozaru. He was trapped in this electrical, field, and, he had to get out by, he saw the moon, and that's how he broke free of that. So yeah, Roshi is Thor. That's cool. He also had a technique, I don't even know how to describe this, it wasn't really given a specific name, but it was some weird form of hypnosis technique that he could use. Yeah, clearly not something that we've seen Goku or Vegeta implement, maybe not a standard ki attack, but he was able to use this technique on Man-Wolf in the second tournament he was in the 22nd tournament. Yeah, it can put people to sleep, and it's a pretty interesting move, so just felt like I should bring that up. On top of that, he's also a master of the Drunken Fist, which he implemented near the end of his fight with Goku. It's funny, because I remember watching that scene, and that's American right there. They had to change that over to like the mad cow stance. It was crazy how they had to dub earlier TV, right? So that's something. I don't really know if that would play a role in it at all, but I mean, how fucking hilarious would it be to see Roshi, bulk up in the Tournament of Power and then have one random alien attack him and he goes fucking drunk move and just, moves off to the side, fucking elbows the alien, just falls off, because the point of the Tournament of Power is not necessarily, kill your opponent or beat them into submission. It's just you have to get them off the stage. So in theory, you could, in a sense, if you're really good, if you're really fast and skilled at manipulating your opponent and stuff, you could just like move out of the way and get them to fall off. I'm sure that's going to happen quite a few times in the actual tournament. He's also pretty fast when compared to a normal human, of course, as well as utilizing the after image technique, which is a pretty basic technique of rapid movement, but could be useful in certain scenarios. On top of that, he's also knows the Mafuba, the evil containment wave that was taught to him by his mentor, Master Mutai Ito. Probably not going to play any role at all in the Tournament of Power, mostly because in order to use the Mafuba, you need to have a jar or some kind of a rice cooker, some sort of container to put the evil spirit or the person you're sealing. You're not allowed weapons in the Tournament of Power. I don't know whether or not Roshi would be allowed to utilize that, but it's probably not going to be included at all. Probably should just forget about it. Of course, it was taught to Goku during the previous arc, the Future Trunks arc, but didn't really go anywhere. It wasn't the way that Zamasu or Goku Black was defeated, but it was cool that they referenced it, going back once again, paying tribute to Dragon Ball. Yeah, now, there's another thing that Jackie or Master Roshi can do, and it wasn't something that he was directly shown to do, but it's interesting to know, just for the level of trivia this is, I'm going to throw it in here. So, do you guys remember, this is really early Dragon Ball, so this is there's some real fans of this might know what I'm talking about, testing your knowledge here. Do you know what Goku's signature fighting technique was before it was the Kamehameha? This was the kind of technique he used to fight against, like, Yamcha in the earlier days of Dragon Ball. You know what it was? It was a variation of Janken, of all things. Yes. It was a technique where Master Gohan, Grandpa Gohan, Goku's adoptive grandfather had, that was apparently taught to him by Master Roshi, and so Goku eventually learned it. And yeah, you might be thinking very similar things to Hunter x Hunter right now with Gon's technique. Just keep in mind, of course, Dragon Ball was first. But yeah, it was literally a technique where Goku would, like, paper and then, like, slap someone in the face, and that's, how he fought Yamcha and stuff. And this pretty much fell out of vogue very earlier on in Dragon Ball. I would be amazed if this was included in later on, if this technique was included. But Gohan taught it to Goku, and who was Gohan's master? It was Roshi. So Roshi probably is aware of that. He just never used it himself. A downside, of course, is that Roshi cannot fly. But that shouldn't be too much of a concern in the Tournament of Power, because as we've seen, flight is actually not going to be useful if you fall out of the ring. Now, I think you could still fly around in the confines of the ring itself, but once you hit that border, you're going to drop into the world of Void and die, be rendered unconscious, disappear into nothingness. That's really kind of vague what that's going to be included in. But yeah, so that's something that Roshi cannot do, though. So just keep that in mind, whether or not he just never learned the technique. Because the flight technique, the Bukujutsu, the flight move in Dragon Ball was actually a technique that was exclusive to the Crane School. And Roshi and the leader of the Crane School, I forget his name, it's Tien and Chaozu's master, he actually, they were enemies, they were rivals. So it would make sense why Roshi would not want to learn the flying technique, since that's a staple. Of course, a shit ton of characters can use it now, but back then, that was a staple of the Crane School, so that's probably why Roshi never really wanted to learn it. Probably could use it if he really wanted to. And if he did utilize flight, I would want him to say that. I want him to acknowledge the fact that it's like, oh man, I never thought I'd have to use this move, something like that. But yeah, going beyond that, you might be curious about his age, because that might be a cause of concern. Roshi is definitely an old man. He was a super old man by the time that Goku met him, and now here we are several decades later. Is Roshi going to be okay? Well, I think from what we've seen with the resurrection of F Saga, Roshi's still got some spring in his step. But it's also important to mention that Roshi, even at the time of Dragon Ball, was over 300 years old. Yeah. Now, I don't know exactly where I heard this from. I remember reading this at one point. This might not have actually been confirmed. It might have been in a data book. Maybe I'm not remembering this correctly. But the explanation I heard about this, about why Roshi he's so old and yet he's so strong and he seems to have he has a longer vitality than every other human. I mean, yeah, you could say that, oh, well, he's a trained martial artist and he, toned his body and he can live longer. Maybe that's the case. One time I heard that he drank, like, the elixir of life, or some, not a fountain of youth, obviously, because he's still an old man, but some sort of, like, immortality liquid, some sort of like that, and Baba drank it too, and that's how they're like these older characters, but they're still wicked powerful. Well, Baba has her clairvoyance and her spiritual abilities, and Roshi's the martial artist. But that was the explanation I read. It might have just been something as simple as just a forum I was on. I couldn't exactly find this on the wiki, so yeah, that's just an explanation I heard. I wouldn't worry too much about it. His age is probably not going to play a major factor in this, because he's still pretty much just as strong as he was at the beginning of Dragon Ball. And you might just be thinking, why the fuck would they throw Roshi in there? Roshi is such a weak character. He stopped being relevant a while ago. It's so weird to see him, even Krillin and Tien and Yamcha. Okay, well, maybe not Yamcha. Well, no, okay, probably Yamcha are stronger than Roshi, right? That's what you might be thinking. If you want to go the power level scale with it, Roshi has the power level of like 130 something when he's just chilling out, and about 180 something when he's serious. Might go up a little bit higher than that when he goes max power, fucking Kamehameha and shit. It might go up a little bit more there. But for the most part, yeah, that's Roshi's power level. But keep in mind, this is not going to be a tournament where every single contender is going to be on the same level as, like, Goku or Vegeta. This is not going to be a tournament where you have to straight up fight against an opponent one-on-one. If that was the case, I think we might have some problems here. This is going to be a huge battle royale with a fighting stage that's like the size of a freaking country. It's going to be pretty big, and the goal is to knock your opponent off. I think, personally, having a character like Roshi, who is seemingly a feeble old man that is obviously extremely experienced from the many years that he's lived, and the battle and the martial artist, experience that he has, and most of the other warriors would view him as nothing more than just a senile, perverted old man that they could take out pretty easily, and he's got, some skills that could maybe fake out an opponent. I think that would be extremely useful in this tournament. I really actually think that's the name of the game for the most part. Also, teamwork's going to play an important role here. and getting people that would go along with that and that work together, good. I mean, that's why Gohan's going to be somewhat of a tactician here, and I hope we maybe get to see a little bit more. I mean, it's Dragon Ball, guys. We're not going to see something too crazy like Kingdom, but I hope that we'll get to see Gohan implement some strategies here. Roshi is also pretty smart. So there's some reasons there why he was participating. But I would want to see what's up with Yamcha, because, I mean, if you had to choose between Roshi or Yamcha, in terms of power level, you might have to go with Yamcha. But in terms of just likability, I would go with Roshi all the way in terms of, like, fan favorites. So yeah, I think Roshi's definitely got some tricks up his sleeve. He's not going to be a one-hit KO or anything like that. They're including him for a definite reason. Perhaps he got stronger since his, the time in the resurrection of F Saga. Maybe he got stronger since then. Who knows? Maybe he's got some other skills in his repertoire of techniques that he hasn't used yet. Maybe we'll see some old favorites like the Thunder Shock or like the Hypnosis shit or the Drunken Fist thing. I think it's pretty much guaranteed we're going to see him go into his muscle form and launch a Kamehameha or two at a motherfucker. And I think we might be seeing some at least a homage or two to the Roshi of old in this Tournament of Power. We might get to see old school Roshi a bit, have a time to shine. Last thing is, I kind of hope, because you're gonna play off his perverted nature at least a little bit, probably, because that's such a big part of his character. I kind of hope he fights against like this really like sexy alien girl. Because I just think the possibilities of comedy there would be fucking endless. They'd be hilarious if that was the case, right? He fights her, and then at one point he decides to, he takes off his shades, like, all right, I'm a perverted old man, and you're a hot alien girl. But listen up, girl. I can't have our universe be eliminated. All right, so I gotta be serious here with you. Something like that would be cool. And a lot of other people that he might be fighting with, aliens from other universes, they might not be on the same level as gods, and they might not have as much experience as Roshi, and Roshi might be able to, get one over on them. I think that's the kind of stuff we're going to see in the tournament. Anyway, though, what do you guys think about Muten Roshi, about the Turtle Hermit? What do you think he's going to do in the Tournament of Power? Why do you think he's there? What kind of techniques do you hope to see him display? If he has other techniques he hasn't shown yet, what about that kind of stuff? That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Thanks, guys.